Hi guys, welcome back to the Python classes. So in this lesson we'll be discussing input and output. In the last lesson we discussed type conversion. Input output is simply how you take in data and present data to the user. So what I'll start with is identifying the main functions that you use for this. So they're built-in function for the input and displaying data on the screen. And usually take an input with the input function as well as provide output with the print function. So when I comment this says name equals input, enter your name and then print hello. If I run this, so I'll right click on this and run that. Just enter your name, right dot, enter, and it says hello dot. So basically, it's taking input with the input function and it's printed provided output with the print function. So that's really the basis of it all. If I uncomment this, age equals input, enter your age, and then it converts the age into a float, and then it provides that string there. Next year you'll be 1 plus your age. So if I run this, says enter age, say write 12, or I press enter, says next year you'll be 13. So what you see is that it's converted to a float, which should ideally be an int. So I'll just change that to int and then run it again. When I say 12 now, you see it says next year you'll be 13. So it simply converts the input into an integer and then adds it to a 1. So if I comment that out, let's see what it does this time. We expect it to give us an error. So if I write 12 again, now we get an error because uh, it's unable to convert the string into. I'll comment that out, move to the next line. Okay, it says height equals float, input, enter your height in meters. Your height is height meters. So if I run this, enter height in meters 1.2, says it gives you your height is 1.2 meters. So it simply concatenates that, just puts it within the list of parameters for the print function. So the print function can basically just automatically convert the input into a string. But what you notice here is that we have this input here, which returns a string, and then we have the float function which converts it to a float, and then we sort of pass that float in here. So it doesn't really matter because we're using a string here anyway. So if I were to do this with this, if I comment this out and remove the float from here, do you think there'll be an error if I run this? Alright, 1.2. There shouldn't be an error because we're sort of concatenating strings together here. Alright, so I'll comment that out. Undo and then comment that out. So next, the print function is used to display output. It can be print strings, numbers, and variables. So I'll comment this. Or set name equals Alice, age equals 25, location equals London. And then we'll simply add everything together here. If I run this, it says simply prints out the name, age, and location. We've already done input, so you can as well save this from the user and then just concatenate that. So to print Python is awesome. Sep equals hyphen. So if I run this, it says it adds the hyphen to it. And in the second case, it adds the @ to the name there. So that is set by default. What it does is that it has an empty string. And when I run this again, now you see this is actually similar to what we received here without the hyphen. So in other words, this missing is by default an empty string. Now you see it's the same thing. So often you don't use it, you rather use formatting rather than adding the set parameter there. So I'll comment that out. So in this case, you see there's an end here, and that end applies to only this line, not the other line. If you run this, It says hello world. So if I were to put a slash, double slash there and run it, it says hello slash slash world. Now if I were to put a new line character there, I say puts on a new line because the slash n means go on to the next line. So by default, end is also, if I remove this and run this, by default it prints onto a new line, basically. In other words, without the end, it adds the new line character. That's the default, basically. So if I run it again now, it'll be the same thing. Yeah. I use f strings for print out. So name equals Alice, age equals 25. My name is name age. What you notice is there's an f at the start here, and what that means that the print function automatically converts them into a string and then just puts them in the output. So if I run this, you get my name is Alice and I'm 25 years old. This is often the easiest and most useful way of print out formatting. And then next we'll go to this line. Now, some missed this. Now this is another way of using print format function. So in this case, we're using the name and age here. So I'll comment that. So in this case, you say print my name is, and then you have the opening and closing brace. So these are more like placeholders for the variables you're going to pass in just after the string there. So what it means is that you can actually use this as a template somewhere. So you could copy this, for instance, template, cause that, and then you use a variable instead, template format. So this can be stored in database or somewhere else, and then you can just run it like this. So if I run this, say accurately says my name is Alice and I'm 25 years old, and you could do this again. I just put something else. I put age as say 39. When I run this, you say it just inserts values into the function. So this provides a template that I can now use to insert the values into. That's a bit different from what we have here, where you actually insert the values in there. So if you were running a loop, for instance, and you want to operate on values, you could easily use this. But again, you could easily define this before the loop and then just pass in this string and then add the format and then pass the values for each iteration of the loop. You simply change the values in there. And then lastly, you come down here and comment this. The same thing we're doing here, but in this case, we are sort of providing multiple entries for the input function. So before it was just a single variable, but you can actually use this split at the end of the input. Because at the point where you're providing, where you're running this input, it's providing a string. What simply happens is that the split functions apply to that string and then also split into an array. This is what an array looks like. That's an array. So this is an array of integers, but what you get from this is an array of strings. So if I were to run this, say name and age, I say dot and 34. It gives me an error because it's looking for a slash, not an empty string. So I'll do that again and run again and say dot slash 34. And you see it gives me the name dot age 34 because now it's using that slash to sort of process the input. So if I change that to @ and I run this again, I say dot slash 34. Definitely to give me an error because it's looking for an @ so I'll run this again and dot @34. So this time you see it's supposed to again dot 34 and that way you can sort of provide several inputs using a certain character to split them apart. And finally, if we come down here, These are another iteration of this other bit at the top, so I'll comment that out. And you see again, it's this time it's using a for a comma. So if I put a dot slash age slash 34, you should get an error, yes. So I'll stop again and then run and use a comma instead. So it should this time to be dot comma 23, and then you can see it gets out the values. So we stop here today and continue next lesson on the next subject. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Cheers, bye.